One, two, three, four.
And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Breakfast with Brothers. Today, we have a very special episode for you two. Yeah, so we got a special episode for you guys today. Let Zach kind of take it from here and do what he's got to do.
Thanks, buddy. I'm bringing on one of my best buddies that I came up through high school with, and he's here today, hanging out with us, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this, talk a little bit about that. I'll let Ian talk about the topic, but come on in, buddy. Introduce yourself. Tell us what you do,
How
where
we
you're
doing?
from, what you're rocking with, and let's see, what's the big question of the day? Who your favorite sports team is?
Well, hello everyone. Caleb Phillips. Like Zach said, grew up with Zach in high school, best buds since middle school probably. And yeah, I'm a director of athletic communications, live up in Plattsburgh, New York, and diehard Cleveland Guardians fan. Unfortunately, right now at this second, season outlook not looking great, but hey, you know what? We're in the championship series. I'll take that.
Hey, quick go Yanks shout out in there. No big deal.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Lame.
No, but Ian, what are we putting the people on today? We got a third legend with us today, rocking as the guest fun. So what are we putting the people on to?
So today we're going to kind of talk about, I guess, our collective experience as a whole through dealing with kind of our own experiences within what happened during COVID. So the three of us, well, actually, those two were graduating at the time from college, and I was in my sophomore year going into my junior year when everything kind of collapsed. So we're going to kind of elaborate on what we experienced, how we came out of it, what we do now because of it, and how we functioned during it. So I guess we'll kind of just, whoever would like to go first. Zach, if you want to go first, or I can go first.
Yeah, I was going to say,
what are we feeling?
I'm trying to remember. It started in early 2020, right? And then it finished, like the end of 2021? I kind of blurred out a lot of what happened from my memory, and trying to put the timetable on it again has been like, okay, this happened then, and then we had to do this with like the 6 feet of space, wearing masks into places.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, having to buy food before you went into establishment and stuff like that. So I'm trying to remember how long it actually lasted, because for me it was
I think it was like
hitting the beginning of the year, like February, March, right?
yeah.
Of
I think
2020.
it was like mid-March, and I remember distinctly I was in grad school in Ohio at the end, like June 2021 was like when they stopped requiring masks in Ohio. And then you'd have some place where I think it lingered. Like I remember I had to wear a mask at my job, my first job that fall 2021. But basically once like summer
Yeah.
2021 hit, it got kind of back to normal.
I was
So it
gonna
was
say-
like a year and a little bit then. Okay.
Yeah, year
Yeah, no,
change.
I remember it clearly. It was March because that's when I had my spring break. It was towards the end of March, and there was things going on saying well, we don't really know what's going on yet, so go home, enjoy your spring break, and then you guys can come on back and go from there. And then halfway through spring break, they said, well, we're shutting down. So come back, get your get your stuff. You're out of here.
Yeah, I mean for
So
us
it
it was
was a
super
wild
weird.
experience.
Yeah, it was super weird for us because we were when it was all kind of starting, we were down in Florida. I played baseball in college for the listeners, and we were down on our Florida trip. Basically, like we start the year down in Florida as a Northeast school because it's kind of hard to play in the snow, especially baseball. Um, and we have a turf field, but even that early in the year, it's still tough to play out. So it's like usually last week of February, first week of March, we're
Yeah,
down there, and I remember. Right, yeah, I remember that whole trip like progressively it was like, hey, maybe don't go to like Orlando. Don't go to any big places. There's this COVID thing that's kind of spreading around. Um, and then like by the time we got back, all of a sudden it was like, we might not play this weekend. Like, and then from like Monday, it was like maybe we don't play Saturday to Thursday our entire season was canceled, and then by that following Monday, um, I had gone home. So it was like really quick, especially for us with being right in the middle of the season where you're kind of locked in, ready to play baseball. It's my senior year, trying to make it to the SUNY or the Empire 8 playoffs, and next thing we knew, it was just over.
I was gonna say, I remember how that was like unfolding, and people were, that was a big thing, like going across media at that point, where people were kind of in like a standstill with like trying to figure out what that looked like as a timetable. Once they found out they were like,
Yeah,
okay, this is gonna be the path we're taking. Like, yes, there might be a positive outlook, and we can give you this, that, and the other as far as like something to look forward to. But everyone was kind of just like, well, it's gonna have to be postponed indefinitely. And I think that was,
yeah,
at least for me, I remember them saying it was like, hey, uh, with school and everything, you couldn't do club sports. They weren't doing anything as far as like on-campus activities. They were, I think, giving out, like lunches in a very specific way, like for people who are on like dining passes and stuff like that. And then
yeah,
for people who are off campus, it was like stay off campus, if you're gonna do anything. Like everyone else, go home. Like if you're on campus, you got to leave and whatnot. And aside from like losing out on not only the education, what in your case, now you also have your sport. That of course,
yeah,
you know, the worst part about it was that it was senior year, but that just on
yeah.
top of everything, where it was like, okay, well now what? And you're just kind of in purgatory, like wondering, where to.
Right. It was crazy for us because it wasn't
Yeah,
as
it
much
was
as like. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
no, yeah, I wanted to kind of add to it. It was
Yeah,
just, I think I just switched over to like philosophy and such at that time, so it wasn't too like detrimental for me, but for like my roommates, they were, still in music school, and well, how do you play music when you're at home and can't be in an ensemble? I mean, you guys obviously understand that.
right,
Right.
right.
So it's kind of like everything was just put on hold, and they started doing stuff online, and no one knew how to do anything online because everyone was brand new to it all, and all the older professors had no idea how to use their laptops. So it's like, what do you do then? Because now you're struggling and the professor's still grading you for the work that you're doing, and like you're kind of getting shafted. And that's kind of what happened to me. I got heavily
Yeah.
shafted during one of my courses because like it was difficult. It was terribly difficult to do online by myself.
Yeah, I was gonna say like it was super weird for us because kind of Zach's point, it was like he's talking about the uncertainty behind it. For us, it was super weird because all of a sudden it was like I felt like Monday or Tuesday it was like we'll see with the season, and then by Thursday it was like yeah, actually there's going to be no season. Like it was like that's it, it's over, and so that was like kind of crazy. It was like it just for us it just happened so quick, and like within a week of getting back from Florida, we were like home and like not coming back to Houghton, which is like super weird. And I just went back to school for the first time a couple weeks ago. It was just like crazy, like how quickly I was out of there and then not being back in a while. Different subject, but like just how quick it was, I think was the weirdest part for us. I really have time to like process it um when it was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. I
Yeah,
was gonna
no, it
say,
was
looking on it now. Sorry, Ian.
no, go
Was
ahead.
just gonna say, like, thinking from a different perspective, like then not knowing what was to come, as far as like events ahead and looking into the future and stuff like that. Obviously, now sitting where we are today, we knew what happened, how it went, and now we're back to mostly normalcy. But I'm also wondering what that would have looked like if we had to maintain. Like for example, if tomorrow, some bigger powers were just like, hey, so it decided that COVID number 2 came out, and we're just gonna do another shutdown. Now that I know what that shutdown looks like, I wonder if we would go into the same thing with that uncertainty, or if we would just forever be thinking that we would come back to where we are at right now. Again, that normalcy. Now, I didn't mean to like completely break the subject apart, but I kind of wanted to, put a little interesting take into it and see what you guys thought, what that would be like if it happened all again, and we had to sit through kind of the same thing that happened, but instead of being at school, where we're at now in our.
Yeah, I mean, like for me personally, like my job would be useless. I mean, I cover college sports for a living, so like I wouldn't be doing anything. Talking to like my bosses, what they kind of did over COVID, it was basically just like finding ways to get out content about athletes, and it was tough. and like you're kind of just hoping and preparing for something that might not happen. You're like, well, we don't have winter, maybe we'll have spring sports or something like that. But honestly, I feel like just culturally, like I feel like like I know there was a big divide, I think, throughout a lot of it in the political aspect. I do think people would be more, I don't want to say skeptical, but just kind of like, all right, I've done this before, like I'm not doing it again. I feel like that would be even the more like common response from people is like, well, it wasn't that bad before, maybe from their experience, and just kind of not even like do whatever was recommended or everything. But personally, obviously, my life would kind of be flipped upside down. It would definitely make my job completely different for sure.
I feel you. I feel you. What do you think, Ian? Like, where would that put you? You know, honestly, if that were to turn over tomorrow, I mean,
Well, truthfully, I think it would work similarly to what we experienced over at Bethel Woods, where we just kept working. It doesn't really change anything, but it could change a few things. Tree work here during the winter time, there's usually no one around. So like when we do go to like properties, it's like kind of planned ahead of time, or that the owner or the caretaker is still here or comes to deal with anything that we're working on. So more than likely, we still will continue to work. It sounds like they worked through COVID when, back when it first happened, obviously, hoping not for a second time. But they worked through it, the initial experience. So it didn't seem to change anything for them. It might have just changed how we all live together, so it really wouldn't change anything, I don't think. So if anyone gets sick,
yeah,
it's
unless
like,
you were like, dealing with outside contact and all that. Yeah, I hear you.
yeah, it's a matter of just, obviously not getting sick, just doing whatever you can to stay healthy. So it truthfully, it wouldn't hit me as hard as it might hit Caleb or possibly even you, Zach, considering that you work on a golf course at least during the summertime, spring and summertime, and half of the fall.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's the only advantage that anyone who works outside has, is that everything that's going on outside is still going to go on, so it needs to get maintained in some fashion. And that's
Right.
not just cutting grass, that's like garbage people, the post office, hospitals. I mean, holy cow. And then, of course, all your government institutions. So I would have to feel like, in general, like we're already facing, people that deal with like seasonal depression with winter coming up and having to battle back, what comes with that, and like tucking yourselves indoors and finding remote work even. So I have to imagine, like, if it were to shut down again, a lot of people, like I think Caleb made a good point, would kind of just continually brush it aside, until it actually became a point where people were getting mandated or enforced to do something. And I think even then at that point, there'd be a lot of backlash, because people already went through the BS of being told this and it was a sure thing, when in reality it didn't actually matter, or it wasn't effective in like the course of action. And I don't want to take this to a point where it's going to get political, and
Right.
I'm not trying to step on people's toes that were actually affected by COVID and things like that. But I'm thinking of it more as a reality where, Caleb was kind of headed, that people are happy to uh, do the opposite of, what would make sense, for those like classical mandates. And not that
No
that's
one,
like
no one wants to be told what
illegal
to do
sounding or
for
anything,
sure.
but it makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I mean,
think
I don't
it's
know.
like I think a lot of people who, you know, again, that everything that COVID did, in the fact of it being the sickness that it was, going through it, I don't even know how many times now. Like, I know I've gone through it at least like 2 or 3 times at most. And it's not fun. Obviously, it's real and it happens and you get sick. But the point is a lot of people towards the end of it got extremely tired of the fact of having to completely isolate from everyone around them. And I think if
Yeah.
we come back into that similar scenario, people are going to be up in arms about it entirely, because even those that were affected by it all in terrible ways, I think even they would have something to say about social distancing. I couldn't think of it.
Yeah.
I think even they would have something to say.
try to delete that sentence from every possible piece of vocab in my language.
Oh yeah.
Like social distance.
6 feet, 6 feet.
Yeah.
6 feet. I still see the tape, like the tape marks floating around certain places. It's
Yep.
still.
Yep.
Yeah. I think those signs in the bathroom at Plattsburgh were up like last year still. Like they just like randomly seem if you're sick, stay 6 feet away from people. Just I'm like, it is 2024. It was 2023, all right? Let's put this behind us. But it was funny because when I got here, like so I was at a school in PA from fall 21 to the winter of 21, 22, and then I came here in March of 22. So almost 2 full years
Yeah.
after, that was when they had just dropped the mask mandate at Plattsburgh. They were no longer requiring masks. So it was really weird, I think, like coming back to or coming into that. It's like, yeah, we finally don't have to wear masks. And I'd already not really had to do it too much at Susquehanna since like the fall, but yeah, no, that was weird coming up here. So definitely still saw remnants of that. They put me in a room that was basically like an isolation room. That's where I stayed for the 3 months through the end of the year. So that was like kind of it was just weird because I was literally like just watching the end of that here at Plattsburgh State.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a little that seems a little long
It was,
because
yeah.
if I remember, because like my senior year of college was the end of 2021 into 2022,
Mhm.
and like I believe it was the start of our senior year where it was like completely lifted. Like everyone was able to return to classes as normal. I think for the most part. I mean, if you chose to wear a mask, that was your own prerogative. But I think
And
a
people still do.
majority of yeah,
Yeah.
which
Yep.
whatever they can do whatever the hell they want. They're
Yeah.
their own person.
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think yeah, it seems kind of late considering you came in 2022.
Yeah. It was
That's
it
they
was
held on
weird.
to that for a bit.
And I feel like at Susquehanna, my first school, it was basically like you didn't have to wear it if you like at your workstation or you were eating, but like walking around, in buildings, you're supposed to wear it. So like indoor basketball games, things like that, indoor volleyball, you had to wear them. And then I remember they had kind of lifted it a little bit around Thanksgiving, I think. But then when we came back in January, that was when there was a spike again, 21 through 22,
Mm.
and you saw some games getting canceled across uh, Division Three and Division One actually. So across the country, some collegiate sports. And I remember they were like, "Yeah, you have to wear like the N94 or whatever it was, like the surgical or the medical masks." And then it was like
Oh
a two
yeah,
week
like
like
that
thing,
next
like when
level.
we,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like a 2 week thing when the kids are coming back, and then they just dropped everything, which was like super weird to me. It was like wear like the highest level of mask you have to, and then now actually you don't have to wear masks ever again. So it was weird. It was a weird time. It was just like it felt like things just didn't make a lot of sense, but I wasn't the one making the decisions or, you know, I guess I was a sheep in that sense. I just kind of followed, did what I was supposed to. I mean, when you work somewhere, you're not going to battle anything, but I was always like, this is interesting. Like, I don't know, it just didn't make a lot of sense.
While you bring that up, it's a perfect scenario for thinking about people who weren't sheep and were trying to battle back, against workplace. I guess we could say harassment, but people who, like nurses, for example, when they were, given an option. I know that was more like vaccine stuff, and
Hmm.
I'm not really going to go into the politics of vaccine stuff, but I know that kind of cycled into roughly the same time when they were trying to rush out the vaccine. Trying to help people. We'll say in this case. And I'm sure there was a lot of times where it did help people. I'm not going to sit here and bash it one way or the other or take a stance. But I will have to say that that direction that they took with that, and then trying to coincide that with the mask mandates, and then saying that if you get a second and a third and a fourth one, that it would be okay. And then if you just make sure you brush your teeth at 12:30 in the afternoon and not 1 p.m. And then if you eat your eggs, only sunny side up. And then it just became like this hoop and pony show where it was like if you weren't jumping, then you weren't gonna make it. And it was kind of like you were gonna be left in the dust at your job, or you weren't going to have your three best friends at your dinner party later in the week, or however it panned out. And it was this ridiculous show that at one point it was just like, all right, what are we still holding on to? Like I'm
Yeah.
remembering specifically when you were bringing up sports, back to when like the NFL, the MLB, and the NBA were coming back. And the NBA specifically had to practice in the bubble, I think during the playoffs for like a big portion of that.
Yeah.
The
That
NFL had players that were, in and out of games that had to isolate because of COVID, but they were still playing. And then once everything was good, they could come back. So then it was like after it got to that point, it was like, all right, it's normalcy time. Like I don't know like what exactly is being held on to here. Like the designation of specifically with sports players of having COVID or having to go through isolation was just like, all right, they're sick. Like, just let them, go through their little virus. It doesn't have to be labeled in this case COVID, so to say. I feel like that extra grasp that they were doing at the end there was a little extra of a push. But, I don't know. Obviously it wasn't a huge effect on me and what I was doing. But of course having dealt with like the social effect, upon everything, not just sports, but lifestyle, job, career, work-life balance, stuff like that, shopping in general.
yeah.
It was a mix-up,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, I'll segue that kind of into my experience, kind of through it. I mean, honestly, like it stunk senior year, losing that year, but like I think that was like the easiest part of it.
Sure.
Like going home, it's like, well, I'm home with my family. Like, you guys obviously got to be home together throughout that, so that was kind of cool. You hadn't lived together in a couple, obviously, since Zach went up to
Yeah.
school, and besides the summer, so like that was cool for me too. Obviously, I got sick of Andrew here and there, but my older brother. But it's nice to be home with my little
Yeah.
siblings and my parents. So that was cool. It was really where after the summer, it's like, well, now I'm graduated. What's next? And it ended up being grad school for me, and that experience was just crazy because I found a school I had and COVID definitely hurt me a little bit in what I had intended to do. I had intended to find a graduate assistantship kind of in the field I'm in now, which are very plentiful.
Yeah.
But because of COVID, they were really hard to find. Because no one knew if I'm in even an athletic season, why I'm going to hire a graduate assistant when I don't even know if we're playing. So a handful of schools were looking, mostly Division ones, and I looked at the school in Ohio, Youngstown. Didn't have enough experience, I think, to stack up with some of the applicants they had, and ended up getting an offer to be a teacher's assistant. It was like full tuition remission, stipend. I was like, well, that's something to do for the next year. I'll get a master's. But this moving to Ohio and living alone as a college student, like going through basically social distancing and all that, it was pretty crazy. I honestly I don't really know how I got through it, like living alone and like just having no like social life. It was kind of crazy. I mean, I was engaged most at the time for a lot of that period, but it was still like,
Mm.
and we were long distance, but we were still like, it was still like a weird like every night like or like every day like I didn't see anybody. Like I was in my apartment. Maybe I'd go to the library, but I go to wear my mask at the library, so obviously it wasn't too fun to do that. But that was a weird. I think that was probably the weirdest part. It wasn't really like going home and living through like the quarantine time. It was the year after where we had to live with all these like rules and regulations on our lives. That I think that was probably the hardest thing for people was living in that like 6 months after where okay now we got to live through like especially as a college student like you can attest to this probably more just as much as I can but like what it was like living in like a weird like kind of part of your life for sure.
Yeah, no, I was lucky enough to have found an off-campus house right before everything kind of shut down. So that worked out like perfectly, in all honesty. We had gotten the house late, and then I think it was like only a couple of weeks after everything started happening.
Yeah.
So truthfully, perfect timing on our end. We had secured the lease and everything, so we were able to come back up to Fredonia, where I went, Fredonia State, and it was just four of us in the house. It was me, my buddy Lewis, which if you've watched the podcast, everyone, Lewis was on with Morgan a little while back,
Shout out.
and Chelsea and John. And so it was the four of us living together, and it was strange, extremely strange, because I can't say that anyone was very happy to just be sitting at home all the time at all.
Yeah.
It was just the four of us. We, like we would go out and do stuff between the four of us. Like we'd go out, like take a walk, drive somewhere, whatever it was. But school for the most part sucked because everything, literally everything was online. Every single one of my classes, I had no in-person classes whatsoever or anything where I was actually leaving the house. So I literally just woke up, sat out of bed, turned around, sat down at my computer desk, and that was it. I even remember, I think it was Chelsea was doing like conducting on, through her laptop and everything, which, yeah, which I don't even know how like you could do, how you could conduct through Zoom because everything lags on Zoom.
Crazy.
But I want to say it was I don't know if it was that initial semester where we came up for, I guess, what was that, fall 2020 into spring 2021. So the fall semester, I don't know if I was working at the library at the time. I don't know if I was able to go in. I can't remember. But I remember when we first opened again, and it was, honestly, it was so depressing working in there. And I think it was my second year there, and it was just so, like, everyone walked in, no one wanted to talk to anyone because, well, they were nervous about what was going on. And it's like I had to play like the bad cop, and when kids like were sitting at, like the fraternities would come in, and they all study together, they all live together, but they would go up to like one section of the library where no one else is, but it was still like a large portion of the library. They'd sit down in like this entire row, and they'd all take off their masks and just do their work and whatever. Truthfully, sometimes they give us some issues because they're loud, but for the most part, they were all just sitting doing their work, coming in for their study time, however long they do. It's usually like 2 hours, I think. And like I had to go up like every 30 minutes and tell them like, yo, you guys got to put your mask back on, like over and over and over. And it's like, I get it, because then everyone's got to go through and clean it all off because everything needed to be disinfected at the time. And, all their breathing is just getting particles everywhere. But it was just, I don't know, it was hard because like the library was like the only place where like you could go with someone else essentially.
Yeah.
And like do work, and actually talk to someone, especially if like you live alone or you live in like a single on campus. Like no one's going to be looking at you. You're not going to really see anyone in the hallway, and if you do, they kind of just walk away from you. So I don't know. It was all very just depressing in every matter of the word. And I think Caleb's situation is even more depressing because he was by himself in a new place for however long,
Yeah. No, I honestly, like I said, I can't really believe, like looking back, that I was just like, yeah, this is fine. And it's really weird to think of, like I definitely was like homesick and like, felt a little alone or scared at times, but like I made like one friend-ish in grad school, and I was there for 3 semesters. So it's like crazy to think about, like, that I was just cool through that, because like I've had like tougher like parts of my life where I was a little more depressed or like unhappy, and I had people around me. So it's like crazy to think about, like I was like, yes, this is not bad. When I had 4 online classes, I met maybe 3 or 4 of my classmates, and like, you know, didn't really like know. It was just, it's bizarre. I mean, I got addicted to my PlayStation and I'm the show. That probably helped a lot. It
The
was kind of new to
show.
me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember
Yes,
that.
sir.
Yeah. Like I was on it every night, and that was my jam. Like I would just be like, well, done with work tonight, garden on the show. And I would just do that. But like, yeah, it's so crazy to think about. Like,
Yep.
and then I don't know, and then like other parts of my life where I've had plenty to do and I've had plenty of people around me, it's been tougher. So really weird. I think that was like just the craziest time for sure, but throughout all of it. I mean, Zach, like kind of talking about where you were, I guess, in that time, because I'm trying to remember what you were doing throughout that.
After everything hit in the beginning of 2020, finished out undergraduate, and then went home, Bethel. Then once I got
Yeah.
back up to school, uh, it was
That's
for
right. You went
grad school
back.
because I
Okay.
was like, well, this is the perfect opportunity to get my MBA and then back out of there because it was 1 year. Didn't know what was going to go on with COVID, and I'm like, if any time is a good time to do it, it's now, because it
Yeah.
was half of my classes were going to be remote anyway, and then the other half were going to be in person and everything. So it was kind of like, all right, well, what's the big deal? Like 100%. And then after everything started funneling back to the point where we could go to class, so long as we were sitting a certain amount apart from each other and wear the masks and everything, and that became like the new normal. And I finished grad school that way, and it was all right. It wasn't anything amazing. Like I got to live with a couple people, and that was about the time that Meg came and lived with us too. So she was a roomie along with Marquise and Chuck, and that's where we lived. For our grad school year. And Chuck stuck around because he blew it on a couple classes, so he stuck around Alfred. And me, Meg, and Marquise got out of there. And then what the heck even happened? Went up to Wellsville, I think, shortly after. Not up to, over the hill. It was like half hour away from Alfred, but there for a year, and then came down to Bing. And then to think that it's only been year number 2 here, we're so not far off from what COVID left us with as far as like what you were describing, the aftermath of the mandate life, trying to stick
Hmm.
by rules and everything.
Yeah.
You were
There's a couple
only
places that I'm still thinking about that still hold rules and all that stuff. But uh, when you guys were talking about that, the modes and moments where it was lonely and a little depressing and stuff like that, I was thinking about all the good that I could pull away, from those same like scenarios. Like thinking about what like my home space became. Like for me, it was like when I was home, it was like the comfortable privatized space where I could kind of do my own thing and really lock into whatever I was doing, side projects or just listening to music or maybe playing video games. Like in Caleb's case, like that was honestly me a lot too. Nasty at Rocket League. Started picking
Locked
up
in.
Fortnite again. It was just like one of those things. So I don't know. For me, as much as it was like hard in those times where there weren't a lot of people around, and I was fortunate to have lived with a couple people during some of it. But it's like one of those things where had I not been able to find that quiet time to myself and time to reflect, then I probably would have gone crazy, because COVID kind of set us up for being a little more, I'll say, lax, with what we were doing with classes, what people were doing with their jobs, how people were approaching certain scenarios. And I think that remote life gave us a little bit of a chance to be lax and maybe even a little lazy at certain times, because I fell ill to that when I worked a remote gig at the very end of like the COVID mandates and stuff. So I don't know. Not that I'm trying to like set excuses for myself and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but there were times where it was just like, oh, I'm home. I'm comfortable. I still got my pajama pants on. Like, work could get done another hour from now. It was kind of one of those things where COVID helped me promote a little bit of my laziness, that I see in some of my at-home adventures today. It's I sometimes I would much rather, be home than be out doing work. And other days it's like I'm super thankful that I'm outside and I'm not home. So I don't know, there's definitely a mix, like where I ended up after having gone through those moments of I guess we'll say loneliness and being alone, isolated, especially.
and I think that's a great segue into life now after all of this,
Hmm.
because you made a great point. Like it's like, yeah, sometimes I just want to sit at home and do nothing. Go back to just doing everything out of my own room. And but on the other hand, it's like I love working outside. I love what I do every day, and I'm thankful that I'm able to do what I do without having any hindrance to anything. So it's like there's always this like itch in the back of my mind, like, oh, you can do everything online, you can work from home, you can just
Right.
sit in a chair and do
It's
nothing.
true. It's true though.
And like, yeah, and some people do, and some people can find that they work better that way. They find themselves more focused because they're in a comfortable space. They find it easier. Or some people who, even if they live in the city currently, any large city, it's like, well, they don't have a car and they got to drive across town or walk however many miles, whatever it is. I'm just exaggerating here, but it does allow for ease of ease of access to whatever you're working on or whoever you work for if you can just do it right from your laptop. I mean, there's plenty of people out there that I know that work from home, and they enjoy it and they love it. But for me, I tried it, and it's extremely hard because I lose focus if I don't have something like keeping my body literally like busy.
Yeah,
What do you
absolutely. I
guys
mean,
think?
yeah, no, I mean, for me personally, like, I could definitely see. Know, and occasionally I'll do work. I mean, I do a lot of work from home, but that's just more the nature of my job. Hey, we played a 7 p.m. game out, wherever. So I'm gonna write the story at home at 10 when the game's over. But it definitely
Yeah.
is. It definitely is nice. Like I think, like being in an office setting. Like I like having my own office, my own space. It's somewhere where I can go in, and this is like a space to get work done. Obviously, when I have to get work done here, in my office at home, I can get it done as well. But it's definitely, I definitely, like that part of my job having that space. Where this is the workspace.
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing because I struggle with like separation between work and my home, my room, my comfort spot where it's like nothing is going on there. It's kind of weird now because I literally walk out my door and then walk through another door, and that's like the shop, like where we have all of our stuff. But there's still a separation between us. It's not like
Mhm.
I'm sleeping right in that room. But I definitely had like trouble separating work from play, so to say.
That transition, I think, was the hardest, though. Being able to maintain a level of focus, after having just rounded the corner from your bedroom, and in your case, actually. And especially working at home, I feel like, of course, COVID presented us with that opportunity. There weren't a lot of opportunities previous to this where there were roles at office spaces that were offering remote work opportunities. And I felt like they were forced into it. And then they found out that, oh my gosh, we can actually do this. And then it was like people started adopting the same thing and it became widespread. And after that, it gave us, a different light of being able to find work. And I think in this case, it promoted a lot of places that may not have been seen or figured out had they not gone remote or digital or online in some form. So I feel like, yes, COVID was, in its awful senses, did a lot of bad things, did a lot of bad, there's a lot of backlash that came and fucked a lot of people over. But it was also the opposite sense where, Ian and I have kind of been on this train of optimism and positivity and stuff.
Mhm.
So, of course, we're always looking at, the best we can from even the worst outcomes. So it's like in this scenario, COVID, of course, gave us those certain scenarios where we're like, well, we're just going to make the best of it anyway. And I think that mindset's important, especially when shit like that happens where, again, I'm going to bring it up. If it were to happen tomorrow, what would you do? I'm not one to like sit here and tell people what they should be thinking. But sometimes just take a step back, take 5-10 minutes of your day and just put yourself in a scenario, that you wouldn't ever normally see yourself. Like for me, every now and again, it'll be like, what if someone broke into my home? What would I do? In this case, the COVID one comes up just not like all the time like this, but it's another good one to think, what would I do if this were to happen? And another big one is like, okay, what if I couldn't grow fruits, vegetables, or get any meat? Like, what would I eat? Like that type of thing, where all just these weird what if, hypothetical, random BS scenarios. But it's like, even if this never happened, I'm just trying to give myself a chance to critically think and be separated from like the normal people that would just abide by something that they were told or just whatever they heard first. Boom, I'm going to pick that up, as if it weren't approaching it with a grain of salt scenario. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it helps, maybe it doesn't. Maybe I'm a psychopath, but I feel like there's an
Maybe a
opportunity to
little.
be able to pull what happened with COVID and, take some good light out of it. But I don't know. I mean, where would you guys even go with that? Like, where are you at?
Like, what would I do if it like happened tomorrow?
Well, no, we already talked about that. But as far as like trying to draw positives out of, the bad that was, I guess.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's well. I mean, I look at it now as that I'm lucky that it hasn't continued past what it did. I'm lucky for, I guess, I should say, I'm happy for the things that I learned along the way within the realm of doing more work online because I still, I still had or I still have the job that I was doing online. It's more or less just work at my own, whenever I want to. And I still do that work every now and again when I have like an hour or two free time and I got nothing else to do. I'll go on there and just make a couple of bucks and put that money away and save it. So it's like I know there's different avenues I could take in regards to work if I need extra money for whatever reason. I guess looking up things that I needed for school, whether it was like research or anything like that, I know a much more expansive, I have much more knowledge on trying to find research when I need to find it, in any sense. And I don't know, I guess my overall outlook on life as a whole has changed completely. I think being completely submerged into that entire situation has pushed me out to be a much more, I don't know, I'll say it again, much more thankful for what I have now. It's mainly just, I don't know, thankful for how we are as humans, what we do to interact with each other, because
Hell yeah.
obviously no one, none of us, no one out there got to see very many people, and I think we were lucky to have, time with our families at that point. But in the case where Caleb left and was by himself for 3 semesters, only seeing like 1 to 3 people and actually
Takes a lot of
like meeting
resilience,
them.
that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's definitely difficult, and I commend those who went through that alone, because there were plenty of people out there that did.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it definitely was like a formative experience. It just definitely made me who I am today in a lot of ways. I mean, it was the first time I was on my own. Like, obviously, you go to school, you're on your own a little bit, but it was the first time I was away, um, with my own car. For example, like I didn't have a car in undergrad. Um, so like going through that experience, where I'm just learning to live on my own was really formative for me. And then really going to the next part of my life, like I had mentioned, I was engaged at the time, but after I was broken up with, dumped, what do you call it? Like kind of having the habits of, well, I was already like at least a living alone. Like then I knew how to kind of like um, transition from that. So after that happened in May of 2021, when I got my first job and moved to Pennsylvania, I was able, I think, to kind of adjust on the fly like that, and it was really weird. And I look back because I did go through a period, my first fall here, where I was not really enjoying life. I was having a tough time. It's like looking back, I'm like, I don't know how I got through like a broken engagement, and like moving somewhere again, like a new place for the second like time in a row for me, and not being like just like finding time to like, wow, life sucks right now. And I definitely credit that experience for me even being able to get through what should have been probably a tougher time in my life. And I definitely had a good support system with family and friends, and they were accessible in that time. I went home initially after that all happened, and that was super helpful. But it was like crazy to think about. Like I think that time really made it easier when that happened. If I maybe I was home, with my family and my parents, it might have been a little tougher when I got my first job and moved to wherever. And now it's like, well, I don't have my family like right here to lean on anymore. Like I got to figure this out on my own and deal with this now. I think it let me kind of deal with it throughout that like summer, and then kind of when I made another transition in life, it wasn't like a crazy, it wasn't too hard for me to deal with. So I think that was probably in terms of like positives, obviously huge negative in that, but a positive from that experience I think was kind of where it's kind of cool to look back and see like that actually was a helpful time for me. It helped me, with an even more negative experience down the road.
Yeah,
So
it gave you structure.
yeah,
It taught you how to work alone. And
yeah.
I think a lot of people lack that because they're surrounded by so many people sometimes. And I can definitely attest to that as well. I think it was when I finally moved out to Nantucket where it was like, yeah, now I'm fully on my own. Like if I need anything, I need to figure it out. And I'm still getting through it. Like obviously I had my my time in Fredonia, and but I wouldn't say that was necessarily all myself. This is fully, I'm fully immersed into it now, but I had good structure. So it's like, and I have a good backing. Like you said, your family was there for you mainly. So it's like, I know I have a good support system and I know I have my own structure. So it's like now I can kind of do anything. It's just a matter of driving yourself to do it. So,
Oh yeah.
I was gonna say, I think that that family aspect was huge, because I feel like specifically in your case, Caleb, having gone through what you've gone through and then being able to come out the other side, like had you not had people on your side, there backing you and giving you the mental support and encouragement when you needed it, I feel like that was big too. And even in my shoes, like I feel like having gone through certain things where it was like if I didn't have, the certain type of family that loved me that certain type of way, it was like who could I talk to? Who could I hang out with? Who would I go and play board games with? Or, who would I take this little, day trip with? Had I not had people around me that were going through the same thing, having to deal with that same BS, with the mandates and, just having to jump through hoops for doing anything. And then also just in general, that work-life balance in and around COVID. So it was like family was big time. And I can definitely say that COVID, helped me get closer, to my family, around people more often, and then just, having to like reestablish relationships that, may have been put to the side because of just putting too much time into work or being so far away, was another big thing. I guess in your case specifically, Caleb, and well now Ian, you got a little taste of it now being up in Massachusetts, so it's like I feel like with family and well, even close friends, being that, or other people, professors and colleagues and stuff like that that you're close with. I feel like having them nearby, like we as people are like thriving on being able to, tell them about that sports bet we won the other day, or about this crazy cupcake recipe we found on TikTok. I feel like those things that we live to, like, for ourselves in the moment, want to tell other people about because it's like, damn, you know what? That person would think this is so cool. So it's like I feel when I was able to have those interactions with other people, especially through COVID, it's like now I feel more wholesome about it. I like almost gain back, certain moments with people that I would have missed out on otherwise. So I don't know. Aside from COVID being, bad in that way, I think with family and rekindling relationships, like I definitely grew closer with like a lot of people who I thought, were just going to be like distant memories or, just photos in my smartphone. So I don't know. COVID positives for me, because I'm trying to put, my best foot forward and be optimistic about stuff. I came out with a lot more than I left with, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely, like I said, helped me out in terms of getting through something tough. I think I was lucky too that that kind of happened right as I think the mask mandate was lifted in Ohio. So I was able to, it was crazy. I think like beginning of June, like shooting on a basketball rim for the first time in over a year, like in a gym
Yeah.
it's just like, it was insane. But like, yeah, no, I was like really lucky there. And I mean, it put me on a great path. I got really lucky out in Ohio. I got to cover, um, I'm a huge Guardians fan, as we mentioned before. I got to cover their double A team. That's an experience that, I wouldn't have had otherwise. And being out in Ohio, and then leading me to the path where I eventually got my first job. And now I'm here, in Plattsburgh where I've worked up from, an assistant role to a director role. And that's so, and I'm a very big person and everything happens for a reason. And, your pathway, wouldn't have happened if you didn't hit all these checkpoints, So I think it's cool to look back and kind of think, well, that even though it was a tough time, it got me to where I am today. And you can always, I think most people can find good things they appreciate about where they are today. So
yeah, no, I think I'm just, any positive taken away from it all is definitely when, you know, things kind of opened back up around me, and we started having. This is just an example. We started having like the underground concerts again. It's a huge thing in
Oh
Fredonia.
yeah.
I don't know if they do it as much as they used to, but I went to a show that was finally like open, and like we didn't have to worry about masks, so on and so forth. Got there and just, actually hearing live music and like being around, being crammed in a basement with like 60 other individuals. And like everyone's just going nuts, and it was, I don't know, that feeling of being immersed in a crowd of people listening to music is just like, ethereal to me. It's what really like it's like, yeah, like this is how it should be. It shouldn't be like all, kept away from each other and like can't speak to anyone, can't look at anyone, can't even like think about anyone. So I don't know. I'm just, I'm very, very thankful that, it all panned out how it did and we're now back to normal. Um, but I'm also very thankful for, I don't know, I guess the tools that I use to get through it as well. The friends that I had at the time, the family. As we've said before, I don't think I would have gotten through any of it without them to get that feeling once more.
Well, now that we hit the positives, do you guys think that you would prefer to push for remote roles in the future now that it's more commonplace? Yeah, I guess to kind of put an example out there, like for me, I feel like I would do like a hybrid thing. Like I would be totally okay with trading off. I don't really like sitting at home and being cooped up all the time, but I also know that having those days where I can, make a nice cup of warm coffee in the morning and just hang out and mosey on to the office would be nice. Because some of those rush around mornings, you're getting up late, you forgot to put your jacket on, you only got one shoe on, that type of thing. Like been there, done that. So
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
not
I don't
wearing underwear. Yeah.
know.
yeah, seriously, close
Happens.
to it. I mean,
Yes. Sometimes you just forget. But
Yeah.
I guess, I mean, for me, like, I would not be interested in any like hybrid role. Um, I think that's just in the nature of my work. I can't really work on a tree from, the house. I kind of either got to get up in it or work from the base of it. But jokes aside, I guess maybe like further down the road, like when my bones just don't work anymore and, I get a little older. Sure, like, if I could still, do what our father does and get up in a tree every now and again, but also, have the ability to do other things on top of that, whether it's like more calm work outside and such, or in my case, I could be, a switch between, or I guess I can be a representative where they're also doing office work, doing whatever, going and talking to clients rather than, doing the hard labor. Like, sure, yeah, like that would, that's a goal for myself further down the line, possibly. But I wouldn't really consider that like in any way like a hybrid or, like online kind of ordeal. That's just, what it is
yeah,
within.
because you're still going out talking to people. Yeah, that'd be
Right.
fully. Yeah.
I mean, I'm still going to be like, sure, I could be like calling people from the house or something or doing paperwork, whatever it is, filling out forms. But I don't see it being a true like possibility in my line of work. That's just me.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, similar for me, obviously, I think, a lot of what I do is based around games happening, uncovering those games, whether that's doing stats, running the stream, making sure everything around the game goes well. I mean, it's nice. We definitely have an office, especially in my role. I mean, the hardest part about what I do is that when do games mostly happen? Saturdays or Wednesday evening, Wednesday night, Friday night. So it's times when you're not really supposed to be working. So it's about trying to find time where, you feel like you're off. So, or you feel like, you're able to get out of the office or things like that. So it's nice. A lot of my work outside of games can be done from wherever as long as I have a laptop. So we definitely try to do work at home when we
Right.
can. It definitely feels a little bit different. It's like, well, I'm home. I'm not going to the office today. So I try to do that here and there. But like I mentioned, I like the office setting. I really, honestly, I really enjoy going in the morning, and like my routine there. Um, but yeah, I mean, if I ever got out of the field, I think, the cool thing about remote or hybrid work is the ability to maybe not uproot your life, Um, you like where you live, you like where you're at, and finding a job where you don't have to do anything, even if it's in, the other side of the country. So I think if I ever got out of the field, I definitely would be interested in that. And I guess we would see how I would do in that sort of role. I feel like I could be all right. It just would have to be like, this room is the work room, and like, don't leave this room except for, an hour or whatever it is. But I think that would be the
Oh
tough
yeah.
part for me. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's definitely nice to have some like a balance of it. And I think that's one of the interesting things COVID kind of brought apart because that wasn't really a thing. like remote doing work from home or doing your job from home. Like that just wasn't that common. It's kind of interesting to see how that kind of all came from that. Like, I mean, one of my good friends, he's only ever worked from home. He's never worked in an office. Like he's always his, and he's like moved all over. His girlfriend got a job in Binghamton. And he just, he's actually out by USAC. She works at Binghamton U, but he, uh, he just got up and moved. Like he didn't have to do anything, he didn't have to quit his job. He just took his job with him. He can work from wherever. So, I think there are some cool things, with
Oh
that.
yeah.
So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, no, it's like I don't know. I think it's kind of a nice concept to it all, where you don't like those who do work at home can kind of just go wherever they please. I think that was something I found to be nice, where it's like I can work from anywhere. When I was working online for a bit, it's like I could go visit Zach. He was only about, I don't know, 3.5, 4 hours away from me, which doing as many drives as I have, it's a pretty short drive and it's nice. So, but I was still able to like work from his apartment, make some money like here or there, um, and not have to worry about like missing a day of work or not having the time or finding time. So it's definitely, I guess it's definitely a nice touch to it all. But you're definitely right. There was a lot of online jobs. I shouldn't say a lot. There was online jobs for a bit, but I think COVID really like pushed it, like to the point where you can find an online job extremely easily now, if you're really looking for one, because there's a litany of them out there now, and you can see it all over like Indeed.com or
Mhm.
what is it?
LinkedIn.
I can't even think of the other. LinkedIn, yeah. So they're everywhere now. But before all of this, I would think it was probably very hard to find.
Yeah, I was gonna say probably hard fought for the most part. At least in there was obviously a lot of scenarios that remote gigs already made sense, but then it became like more normal. I think the big thing for me after that was like my hours spent on this thing skyrocketed 100%. 100%. I don't know what my like hours per day were previous to COVID and stuff, but after COVID through now, I'm pretty sure it's something ridiculous, like three and a
TikTok has not
half to
helped.
4 hours,
It's the worst.
some ridiculous average. And I mean that's the thing. Like I'm not even actively like scrolling. Like usually I try to avoid the doom scroll.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I try to take advantage of that remote opportunity all the time. I use my phone to like do investing. I run my business from my phone. I'm like hitting people up on social media and stuff like that. And every now and again, like when I do have those times where I'm just chilling, it's like, all right, boom, Facebook. All right, boom, TikTok. It's like time to scroll for, however long. Sometimes I'm good about like, all right, 10, 15 minutes. Other times it's just like, just scrolling. And I completely did not set a time for myself. And I'm just locked
Oh,
in.
oh, it's been an hour.
My
Hey, we
God.
officially made it. Well, I mean, I would hate to wrap it up. Maybe Ian could close us out here on some nice remarks. But no, we just wanted to, shout out you, Caleb. Thanks for pulling up, dude. We,
Yeah, absolutely.
run a
Awesome to
guest
talk with you
episode here
guys.
and there when we can with the Breck brothers. So yeah, no doubt.
Dude, yeah, it was great having you on. Glad you could make it. But on that note, so thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We hope you enjoyed our special guest, Caleb Phillips, baseball extraordinaire, sport extraordinaire. We'll even say that now
Yeah.
too. But we hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything for Caleb specifically, let us know. Write down in the comments. Put it something in Spotify. We're working on Apple right now. I think Zach might actually have it hooked up. What's the consensus on that?
Oh, nothing. No, there's nothing published. No.
All right, so scratch that. That's
DJ
not
Khaled
there.
said, "Apple soon come." He did say
Okay, so if that's not the case, then check us out on YouTube. If you're listening on YouTube, check us out on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, check us out on YouTube. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe, please. And we'll catch you guys on the flippy flop. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.